Don't have the sound dampening material up just yet. It is part of this week's phase, along with getting some of our wires put together here. We'll get some folks on here. Hopefully you guys can hear me loud and clear. It's not too echoey. These microphones are usually pretty good about echo. But we'll do an early Saturday. I got a pretty crazy busy day today. Going to be taking the car out, another track event, and then we got a couple videos to record for this week that we're going to get into when it comes to crypto taxes with Coinly. So I'm going to be taking you guys through that platform. It's one that we're using and just trying to capture, how that works. So we'll be going through that. Have another video on crypto.com. I've been researching that platform a little bit. There's several people that have asked me about the CRO token, that kind of thing. So we're going to go through that. We got a whole bunch of hardware stuff to go through also this week. So it's pretty crazy. A2000, we're going to finish up the rest of the testing on that. We got the 3090 Ti, final testing on that. Which the 3090 Ti actually broke my power meter. So it drew a little too much and killed the power meter that we have that separates the riser power from the actual meter. So we're going to be making a new fresh version of that for you guys and take you guys through that. And we also have an L7 that we're going to be going through and doing a full breakdown on that, showing you guys the hash boards on that, kind of some basics around the L7, some statistics to that. A lot of good content coming up. But I thought we'd do an early one today. I've been kind of tracking what's going on this past week with Ethereum development, the Ethereum 2 research side, and then you got the ETH1 protocol side, and kind of go through it with you guys today. We'll get a few folks in here and see how, what's our progress, what's going on, when is the most likely, key ceremonial events that you guys will get a basic idea of when ETH is going to actually merge. So today I wanted to take you guys kind of through my analysis process to try to identify that. Again, all of this by and large is just speculation. We don't know. Nobody's telling me when it's going to merge. What I'm doing is trying to look at the data that's being provided by the Ethereum development teams and then take my experience and knowledge of building big systems and deploying them. Now, this is a little different because this is decentralized and there's a lot of teams kind of working concurrently. However, there's some pretty big ceremonial events that have to occur that would then give me confidence that, hey, this is probably the date. But that's what I want to go through with you guys. But and then we can go through some of the details of, okay, what's that mean? What's it mean for if you're mining with GPUs? What's the real brass tacks when it comes to what networks are most probable to get that hash rate? What do they have to do from a growth standpoint, from a price discovery? What are the features and benefits from those different, networks that may get some newly found attention, as the best way to say it, because Ethereum has a lot of that attention because it is the most profitable thing to mine when it comes to GPU mining. When that goes away, what starts to get some of that attention and some of that focus from people's people developing on it, trying to expand out user bases on it, which then put the demand on the currency side, which then does price discovery. It's not all speculation, my dudes. There are actually people that buy these tokens to actually use them. So there's a handful of tokens that are working hard to take that, mind share and that mining aspects. There's a significant amount of development going on right now on Ravencoin, Flux, Ergo, and ETC. Those are the kind of four core that are, keeping the lion's share of the effort right now. And then there are some that are still out there, kind of, I would call them the dark horses, that are based loosely on Ethereum and are trying to do other things any token that has the baseline of Ethereum as Dagger Hashimo with some tweaks on it to make the algorithm a little different are going to get a little more attention from miners that don't have a lot of experience in the space, because it's an easy pivot to their network, meaning you're just changing essentially what network you're going to, and you don't have to mess with any of the settings on your cards. This is the primary reason why I've talked a couple times about Ethereum Classic being the easiest move over. One of the things I want to talk about Ethereum Classic real quick before we get into ETH2, analysis here is there's several asics that can mine Ethereum Classic. The change to its algorithm wasn't enough to thwart, some of the asics. We're going to explore which asics work on Ethereum Classic here in an upcoming video. We're going to actually identify the entire stack of known asics and which ones can mine Ethereum Classic and which ones can't. The reason why this matters is because all of you also know that there's not a huge amount of price discovery on these other tokens to absorb all of Ethereum's hash rate. So what's going to happen is the most efficient things are going to win first, coupled with the most, the cheapest power cost, right? So if you pair cheap power cost with ASICs that can mine Ethereum Classic, you're the least common denominator to shut off. Thereby, you are stacking up the majority of that hash rate. So there's a significant amount of hash rate that can move over to ETC that's ASIC based. So there's a real chance that if ETC doesn't tweak the algorithm any ahead of the Ethereum switchover, that ETC will become by and large a ASIC coin, which will be using the ASICs that are on Ethereum right now that will try to look for a place. And this is just the way it's going to be, because ASICs can't really pivot to like Raven or something like that when they're designed for Dagger Hashimo. So we'll see what that does. I think that analysis of which ASICs can actually do it will help us lend what's a typical batch size of, like, let's say an Silicon A10. We can try to understand if that ends up being 40 to 50 terahash worth of ASICs. That's almost double what the Ethereum Classic network is right now. So you can start to see very quickly the algebra that's going to go into that of figuring out that ETC is not going to be able to be mined by GPUs. So unless they make a change, I mean, that's another thing too. Like, who knows? Like, there could be a proposed change that then takes the ASICs off the platform there. But ETC, there was a group of folks wanting to go to SHA-3. They wanted to lean into the ASICs anyway, so maybe they get their wish indirectly by a Dagger Hashimo ASICs. Who knows? Anyways, I digress. Let's get into where we're looking, what's going on with Ethereum 2.0. Where is it at? If you don't really follow and track it, where is the information to figure out kind of where the development teams are at? And then what I would say is two of the most, cleanest data points that I usually look at are the Ethereum development meetings. And there's essentially two separate meetings that go on, and they kind of take turns of what's going on. And pretty much every other Friday, which you have the consensus layer call, and then you have the Ethereum core development meeting, which also talk about ETH 2.0 just from an integration standpoint. But you got the consensus call, ETH research teams, all the client teams that are building all the different clients for Ethereum, meaning these are just different, think of them like windows onto Ethereum. They're different views and different feature sets that allow you to interact with the Ethereum network. And we'll pull up the whiteboard here in a little bit, and I can kind of break that out if you guys want to, of just to kind of understand the layout of it. But you have a consensus call, which is the folks that are getting Beacon and the client sides that are setting on Beacon set up. And then you have the Ethereum 1.0, which is the current Ethereum chain that we're all mining, getting ready for that handoff, essentially. And the ETH2 teams seem to be a little more inclined and ready. And that's where you're getting a lot of that momentum saying, hey, we're good. We got test nets. It's looking good. The ETH1 teams are the ones that are kind of like, hey, we're also upholding a live protocol that has all the value locked onto it, a majority of the value locked onto it. And we're doing this as the kind of that side project to get you to merge. So there's a few conflicting priorities, as it were, where the ETH1 team still has to maintain and function, the current live network, along with trying to get this thing merged moving forward. So if I switch over to the screen here, let's go over to the laptop. And this is the Ethereum GitHub for essentially it's different calls. So they keep essentially a layout of meetings, and then the notes on the meetings and key, like I call them ceremonial events, which is the Scrum meetings. Like they just had one 3 days ago on the consensus call layer, and I just listened to this just to kind of see where they're at. And what it came through is really kind of where this testing was on ETH2 and some of the client fixes, across the board. So you had Nimbus, you had Geth, you had Prismatic Labs, you had all these different client teams on this call talking through the various issues and things that they have fixed and the different pull requests to be able to fix other aspects. So part of the kind of, I won't call it a hang up, but kind of what they've been working on lately is the ability to know when the merge is actually going to occur, on how they're going to trigger that. And before, it was always set to a certain block time. So at some point in the future, they would say, hey, here, the merge is going to happen on this block. And we can all do math and figure out like what the current block time is, or the current block is. And if we calculate 15-second block times, you can know that there's 4 in a minute. And then if you see something that's like 2,000 blocks away, it's an algebra problem, right? Or basic math problem to figure out like, hey, that's probably going to land, 5 weeks ahead on this date at this time if the block times stay at 15 seconds. That's essentially the way it was originally going to occur, is that this thing would have hit to a certain point, and then it would just trigger over to the next network. It would be a handoff. One block it's on ETH1, next block it's on ETH2. So in some of their testnet stuff that they were working on, they found out that if people put a lot more hash rate on that testnet and advanced that block time quicker, that they actually would miss that before they could trigger their nodes in time. So bottom line, they decided to adjust that and make it with this whole new way of looking at a terminal block event. Bottom line, and for the folks that don't really track development side, it's just a different way for them to be able to trigger it. And they're trying to work through all of that with all the different clients to know when that event has occurred and where each client needs to be able to now be looking at new blocks. And they're working through essentially a synchronization potential issue with that. So that's where they're at. So the trigger piece of when the merge occurs, that little mechanic that connects to that is kind of what's being worked through with the different clients right now from what I'm understanding. So they could fix this in the next couple of weeks across all the clients, and then now they'll be able to recreate another merge testnet scenario and then watch it all occur, make sure all the acetation and everything kicks in. They've had, in the last event they had a couple of weeks back, and I'll come back over to the main screen here, they had, or it looked like it happened and it worked, but some clients were getting like future dated blocks and certain things kind of went awry, and the network kind of just had some issues that they need to fix. And this is what happens when you're starting to kind of wire up things in the way they are, where you're going to have actually both ETH1 and ETH2 networks running simultaneously until they fully merge over to ETH2. This is another thing that I remember talking to people about, and some folks were just not tracking the fact that Ethereum 1's chain has all the smart contract architecture, has all of the data related to all the smart contracts, NFTs, all that stuff. That stays put. Like, that's not changing. The only thing that's changing on the merge is just the consensus, the fact that the blocks and transactions occurred and that the nodes agree on that. So all that other stuff is still going to be on ETH1. This is why the transactions won't speed up. This is why the transaction cost is going to be roughly the same. They're not going to have an advantage when you move over to ETH2. They're not fixing that right now. They're just changing the consensus layer of who's handling the blocks and then who gets the rewards. Part of the benefit that they're touting a lot of is that it's going to reduce the power consumption, at least for Ethereum. The part that kind of divorces that is the fact that miners have investments in architecture and hardware, and miners are going to look for the next thing to mine. And if you have price discovery on another token, say ETC, say Ravencoin, with enough price discovery, then Ethereum didn't really do anything with reducing the total power draw that's going on in the world when it comes to mining. All they did is just get it off of them, right? And there's still a huge amount of misconception that financial system with nodes and running on data centers is reducing anything, right? I mean, it's going to reduce a direct mechanical the fact that I'm not using a graphics card for Ethereum, but I'm just going to repoint my graphics card. They will be running on, Amazon, AWS, GCP, a lot of the cloud services, because that's going to be your least risk common denominator where people are going to go to the lowest cost, right? They're going to go, I'm going to run an ETH2 node. I'm going to go out to Lido, or I'm going to go out to Rocket Pool, and I'm just going to send my ETH to them, and they have the infrastructure and they have the SLAs, the service level agreements, to make sure that my node stays up and I don't have any issues. So that's part of the kind of rub. So it's just truth in advertising at the end of the day. And then part of the other thing is that the reduction of the total inflation of Ethereum is going to go potentially, with the burn included, to a negative rate, where Ethereum will start to decline when it comes to the amount of Ethereum out there, because you're burning off all the transaction side from the base fee, and your inflation rate is going to be lower because you're not putting out 2 coins every 15 seconds now. You're coming out a lot lower. So there's advantages that they're trying to tout of what it is, but and that's almost for another conversation of is that better or worse. Every time they've reduced inflation on Ethereum, the prices typically went down for a while. We've seen it every time. It went from 5 to 3, 3 to 2. On the output, Ethereum's just dumped. It's just I think there's this basic idea that they think that it's going to help price, but in reality, it always does the opposite. Because at the end of the day, traders are going to trade, my dudes. Like, it's not necessarily that all that inflation that's coming in from our miners that we're immediately selling. Miners have different strategies on that, and it isn't immediately to YOLO all your coins and sell them. So I think it's, there's a completely different way to look at things with that. But anyways, not to digress on that path, when is this merge going to occur? Let's get to that. So based on where they're at right now, all of the clients are not complete. So what that means to me, looking at this, is that they still have fixes that they're trying to get to. That means the code is open. That means that there's still pull requests happening. There's still, some of them are down. They're not out of the feature branches. Like if you go in, should I fire up the whiteboard? Do you guys even care about this? To explain like kind of where they're at in the world. Like, so you have different, like a git flow strategy of like, if you're checked in, everything's in master, and now you're just running tests, you're pretty close to complete. You're at the point to where you're not adding new features. You're not trying to fix bugs. You're doing very incremental test stuff. But I mean, it's not like overarching show-stopping bugs. You're at a kind of more, I would call it annoyances and a level of technical debt. It's things like you could look at it and you could say, I should probably fix that, but I can hold off on it. It's not a critical path thing. Geth looks like it's pretty close to that. Prismatic Labs, Nimbus, a couple of the other clients look like they're still kind of fixing things and getting things ready, trying to identify where the block is at. That kind of stuff does not lend me confidence that they're going to release in June, right? That this whole thing will go off in June. Their current schedule where they're at. I do not at all think they're going to make June. And that's okay. I mean, that's what it is. They got to get this thing right and test. There's a lot of money locked up on this. So if June's not it, they're going to have to make a decision in July to move the difficult bomb, which is the hard fork that they're planning for this release. They have to go out there and make another adjustment to move that. So they'll have a release that's not the merge somewhere in June or July, maybe adding some features, or maybe only just to move the difficult bomb. The interesting fact is, where does that get moved to? So some speculation is that it's going to get moved to December, and they'll still try to hit this year just because of the symbolicness of trying to stay within this year. Because remember, last year, March, there was the burn, and then they were going to try to merge by December. Well, now we're in April, coming into May. They still haven't merged yet. So if they slip an entire another year, they're going to be like, oh, look, all these people said they wouldn't. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What it matters is that the code has to be right. This thing has to be, anybody that's invested in Ethereum, this isn't just pushing it to push it. They have to have it right. So until they can be purely in the master branch, only doing small test fix test, having successful merge releases on testnet, no acetation bugs, no any one client getting out of whack and having to restart a node, when they can get through that on a few cycles, and I'm saying a cycle probably takes about 2 weeks for them to go cradle to grave on restarting it, resetting up, having the event occur, and then moving. If you look at that, if they're there by June, they may try to push it until October, figuring that they're far enough along that October is the date. That's the best case scenario and requires them to be completely pretty much code frozen by June. If they're not there and they're through a few phases and they're still not comfortable, they're not going to slip it to December. Nobody works in December. There's too many events, too many people off on December. You can't have something this big release in a time where people are not available, is what it comes down to. So then this would slip into first quarter of next year. So we're talking January, February of next year. That's the most likely, in my opinion, based on what I'm seeing right now, of where they're at. And again, I'm not adding code to this. I'm not running down anything. I'm just hearing what they're at. I'm hearing the client side issues that they're having on trying to fix. I hear the confidence that the team, at least the ETH research team, knows where they're at. But I also see the inverse of that from the ETH1 protocol development team, with like Peter dropping, kind of bombshells on the tech on the protocol side, of knowing that they have a lot of things that they should probably work through. For them to successfully do this, I believe that they would need a pretty nice hit list on the protocol side, ETH1 side, that they should get fixed on a tech debt side ahead of this merge. That will then make the merge actually function and go through without any issues, any core issues. I mean, there's things that are unknowns on any of these networks. I mean, it is what it is. But if they knowingly and go in knowing that there's a critical issue or a critical bug, and then they push it through anyways because they're trying to get it symbolically through, that's where any of those developers that listen and hear this stand up and make sure that that's not what happens. It is not worth the blowback, the blowout, the issue with ETH1 with Ethereum. There's too much investment. Too many people are building on this. So make it right. Make it good. So my prediction, BBT prediction right now, today, what is it, April 9th, as I believe at their current pace and where they're at, their most likelihood is going to be first quarter next year. Their risk approach would be getting just enough done that they feel that they've had a couple good testnet flows through May. They push the June, saying it's too close because they want to make sure there's some time, and they push it to October, November time. That's the earliest time, and that would still be within this year. But I want to say that it doesn't look like that based on what I'm seeing from this consensus layer call 85, which just happened on the 7th. It doesn't sound like they're on a path to where they're going to be able to hit June. They're definitely on a path not to hit June. And they're already talking like they're not. They're already talking about how long can we let the difficult bomb go before it starts affecting things. And for the people that don't understand the difficult bomb, effectively, it's when that goes off on the Ethereum network, the net effect to us miners is the block times start to move, right? It's not predicated on the mining hash rate and difficulty anymore. It's predicated on an algorithm, a ascending difficulty that's not corresponding with the amount of hash rate on it. So the reality is it just takes the miners longer to find blocks. The math problem's harder. So when you disjoin the network from the difficult that's on it, then you just create a longer time to find a block. Now, what's the effect of that for a miner? That just means our yields reduce a little, because instead of getting blocks every 15 seconds, you might start getting 17, 20 seconds. Well, if it goes to 20 seconds, you're 15%, 20% less yield, because there's physically not enough. There's not that much coins hitting the network as there was. So now you start getting four blocks a minute to move to maybe 3 blocks a minute. So if it was only 2 coins per block, you're taking a 20% hit, right? So 4 coins at 2 coins per block, every 1 minute you have 8 Ethereum. Where if the block time starts to move, you might only go to 3 blocks in 1 minute, you have 6 Ethereum, right? It's 20% drop in yield for a miner if they start letting the difficulty bomb go off. The other side of it is people that are trying to execute, the smart contracts, or if you're trying to get transactions through, you're getting physically less through per minute. So the effect to a user is that everything slows down. And then the effect on programming within that network, things start to break because they have certain timeouts. So like there's smart contracts know certain things have to execute over a certain amount of time. There's like a time to kill piece in that. So it starts to break the smart contract because it thinks that it's a dead transaction because it hasn't happened. So there's things in code, and then there's what I call in the coding world, a third order effects, where there's other things like oracles that connect to real world data. All that kind of stuff starts to potentially break too if they've wired it up in a way to expect blocks in a certain time. Bottom line, nothing good. I like to go back to like a quote in Interstellar when he's like, "What happens if this happens?" And he goes, "Nothing good." That's kind of what happens if block times start to expand out of whack, right? We'll start to discover things that are not working right. So that's the kind of, things that they're going to have to address as early as July. So the things you guys are looking out for right now in this space, when it comes to the merge, is listening to when the June date right now gets moved to. That's really going to be a key aspect of when we know the merge is going to happen. And why am I talking about this? There's 300 plus people here listening to this. People are wanting to know why does this matter? Well, it matters if you're a miner. It matters if you're becoming a miner in this space and you're buying hardware. You're trying to understand what the aspects of your return on your investment is. You're trying to get on the aspects of should you do it or not. Is there going to be something that's able to give you your return after Ethereum? And there's a lot of things resting on this, right? So that's why it's an important subject to talk about. And I like to try to bring this to you guys from just having the developer mindset of where they're at to give us a little more texture to what's going on here. I am going to be having some meetings with, or not meetings, I'm going to have a live stream with Rocket Pool coming up. They're the second largest ETH2 staking pool, and just have a talk about like just ETH2 staking in general and some of my concerns with that when it comes to people being able to get their money out of that. They've made a whole separate token called like STETH, which is staked ETH, to where you can now just sell your staked ETH through another token, and essentially you're just handing the keys to somebody else. And then you're getting your coin minus a fee out of the responsibility, because some people put 32 ETH in thinking that by now they'd be able to realize some gain on that, just to find out like, dude, it's not even on the roadmap with the merge. It's like going to be sometime after the merge. And there's a lot of other things that have to be considered when you start spending down nodes. And there's exploits that can happen, like potentially double spends if somebody didn't have the right inspect architecture in place to where you spun your node down, you try to sell it, ghosting some signatures, issues type of things. So there's when you kind of get out of that consensus layer of independent decentralized consensus, which is what Ethereum 1 is right now, we all can participate by plugging miners in. We all compete for that option to win the block. That's decentralized. It is a non-deterministic. It's a statistical thing. It's not deterministic. We don't know who's going to win the next block, right? Statistically, somebody that has more hash rate than others will win them. Staking and validation nodes is deterministic. It is there's a random selection that's determined every epoch of who's going to be the minter of that next block. So it's determined. Some people argue that it's still decentralized because the random function that selects that deterministic thing is decentralized enough. However, the incentives are completely different when it comes to how many people can get, I'll give you a perfect example, my dudes. In the proof of work side, this would be a damn catastrophe, but this is the current ETH staking. So that big orange one is most of the staking. So Lido pool has 88.9% of all ETH2 stake. That's one pool. So deterministically, why I know from that deterministic standpoint that pretty close to 88% of the time that pool is going to win. So from running MEV, from doing all that kind of stuff, like this and proof of work would be a catastrophe. This would be a failure, right? You have 88% of all of the consensus happening on a single pool. Rocket pool comes in at a rocking 4.6%. So ETH2 staking as it sits right now has a majority on one pool. I don't know. I got concerns, my dudes. I'm not taking shots at them. I just have concerns. I think they would have concerns with it too, that the majority is on that. I mean, there's a huge amount of influence on that when it comes to that. Now, what I would say is if you're moving to another network and there's growing pains, there's going to be bugs. If 88% of all of your convincing effort can be to one pool to shut down all their nodes, restart things, kind of like Solana, like if they have to reboot the network, they have a pretty high likelihood that they're going to be able to do that. So it's kind of like, what's the positive that comes out of this? And that's really where if they do merge over at some point this year or into next year, there's a high likelihood they could probably get it fixed if something breaks because the majority of it's on one pool, but you still have that very high centralized aspect of it. The proof of work side is really separated where you have about 27% on one pool, which is Ethermine, which is actually under here. Let me switch it back over. So this is kind of the separation. Let me move my ugly mug here. Let's get that. Here we go. So you have a separation of this 927 terahash. It's actually right now at 1 petahash Ethereum network. Well, 27.7% on one pool. You got 14% on F2 pool and 13% on this pool. And this is all, can be captured by what's winning, how many blocks have won in the last certain amount of time. So in the last 1,000 blocks, 273 of those blocks were found from Ethermine. So, that 27%, that's where it's getting its 27.2%. And then when you look at this 14.1, it's down a few blocks. It's 26 less than it would normally get with its much hash rate. So there's a luck standpoint to all of this stuff, to where if you had 27.2% of the hash rate, if you were 100% every time to your hash rate total, you get 27.2% of the hash rate. Sometimes that's below. F2 pool is at 14.1% of its hash rate, yet it only had 13.1% of the block. So it's unlucky. Again, non-deterministic. We don't know. It's part of the challenge. All right, I've been going for a little bit, about 35 minutes. Let's take some questions, and hopefully you guys like this. I mean, it's just me kind of going through the research that I've done and my concerns, and then just where things are at. Hopefully this is value add for you guys. It's been a minute, and we're in the new studio. I'm very happy about this. We still got to get our sound dampening. Hopefully this sound is not echoey for you guys. Usually these Shure mics are pretty good about taking care of the echo, but hopefully this has been pretty good. I haven't really looked at too much of your guys' setup here. Let's see here. You guys got POS makes ETH heavily centralized. You might as well run a web server and manage payments. ETH is resides on AWS or something like it. Yes, there's a lot of things on the world clouds. The incentive is set up that way. It's not that they're trying to drive people to the world clouds, but it is literally a managed service where a miner, you are purchasing a graphics card, you are purchasing the motherboard, the power supply, you are feeding it power because it's a high power user. So it naturally decentralizes because somebody's going, for them to run for a cloud to allow you to use their GPUs in that way, they're going to charge you way more than what your return is going to be. So it's disincentivized to use a cloud and centralize things. It's very decentralized because people take the commitment and the risk themselves. The clouds, though, if you're talking nodes, not a huge power requirement, not a huge data, well, somewhat a data requirement. If you're a full node, a lot more managed service cost, and you can kind of work it out. But I think it's still pretty close to not making that much money. You're really, you're pretty much paying for your ETH node and just hoping that 32 ETH goes up in value. You're not making a ton on the winning of your inflation rate. Let's see here. What laptop is that? This is the Alienware Area 51 laptop. This is the Core i9 laptop. Are you going to hold old ETH right before POS or sell into Bitcoin as an example? What do you think about valuation? We still have ETH. We're going to hold on our ETH. I still believe in what ETH was trying to accomplish from a world computer standpoint. It's proven out that it does provide function and features that people have, really attached to from NFTs, DeFi, those type of things. But the architecture and the hardware that we're going to have is going to be pointed to a different network. So we'll be doing there. New studio looking lit. It's still got some room to go, but and we got some lighting fixes to go. So right now I'm just using the overhead lights. I don't have my main lights on yet because it can reflect on this, and we got to make some changes. The sound sounds perfect. Awesome. Are you guys hiring and for what? Yeah, we will be hiring more positions. Right now we're kind of just getting our crypto mine moved around and getting the larger build out, but we'll end up getting into developers and a whole 9 yards. I'm investing a massive amount of capital into BBT. So we're really trying to blow this out. Thoughts on 3090s? Are in the market for 1900 versus 2500 a few months ago? Yeah, everything's coming back down to retail. I've seen a return 3090 at Micro Center the other day was 1630, which is a really good price. I did not buy it because I bought a 3090 Ti and they only let me have one GPU. 3090 Ti be flashed to a 3090. Good question. I don't know. I haven't looked to try to flash it down. I know that it's a massive power use. We actually burned up our meter using the 3090 on it. So the meter that I show with the flip between the riser and the other power, it burnt up that meter when we were doing our big test on it, pulling 660 watts out of the 3090. It actually broke my meter. So we were pushing about 121 watts through the riser and it blew it up. So it didn't blow up the 3090, it killed the meter. So we got to build a new meter. Do you think ASICs will come out soon enough to allow retail to stay in the game for the next bull run? Do you think that ASICs will come out soon enough to let retail stay in the game for? I don't know what you're asking. If a ton of ASICs come out, retail GPUs kind of go away. New studio is awesome. Whiteboard. So is the whiteboard. The whiteboard is sick. I'll show you guys a demo of this real quick before we wrap up of the whiteboard. So hang out for a second and you guys will see. And we actually have it to where you guys can see the feed out of this. You don't have to just watch the screen that I'm on. can actually bring it right up on the screen. If electricity is free, would mining be profitable always? Well, I mean, you have your sunk cost on your capital asset. So if you buy a 3090 for $2,000, it wasn't free. It's just your ops cost becomes next to free. And I would assume that somewhere it's being subsidized. So it's either your parents' house or it's a school or it's some other thing that somebody's paying for the power. Nothing's ever free, my dudes. What do you think about Flux? I'm wanting to do more research with it. I did have the Flux folks reach out and we are going to have a video together just to kind of understand what their value add and their features are. So that will be coming up if you guys are interested in Flux. That laptop's a beast. It is a beast. This is actually it's not super old. It's only about a year and a half. This has a 2080 Super in it and an i9 10900K and 64 gigs of RAM and twin 2 terabyte NVMe 980 Pros in it. So it is a beast. Laptop. Let's see here. Did you get to buy any ETH asics? We only have the original Bitmain 800 mega hash unit. I'm trying to get a hold of an A10 and an A11 and a Phoenix right now in a Silicon just to do testing with. Oh, Rodney dropping a 50 spot. My dude. Thank you. We will put all of that capital back in. We've taken all the capital you guys done from super chats and stuff and invested it back into people and services here. So the totality of all the super chats over the last like 3 years, it came to around $2,600 to give you guys an idea. And we have invested that back into this. Everything that you guys donate on here comes right back into content for the channel for you guys to bring you guys more content. So thank you, sir, for that. Do appreciate it. Just do you depreciate any of your GPUs over 3 to 5 years? Yes, everything's depreciated. That schedule right now was originally 36 months, so that is that 3 years, and now any of the newer stuff we're doing over 5. Why would you want to flash a 30 Ti BIOS with a 3090? Well, some people are seeing not near the same results, and that's part of the problem. Are you searching any other coins that would be the next big thing after mining? I mean, there's the 4 that are kind of the natural, I would say had the natural development and behind it, but you never know. Something else, another team could come out and, fork an algorithm and get a lot of inertia behind it. And you never know. It's happened 4 times now through the cycles. So since the beginning of mining Bitcoin through Litecoin, through VTC had a little run for a little bit there, and FTC, Feathercoin and Vertcoin, and then Ethereum Classic. Yeah, there's always a cycle. There's enough interest. People believe in decentralization and the fact that the proof is in the pudding. Anybody in the world can participate. If they have a GPU, they can participate. They can find a video like mine, Son of Tax, Red Panda Mining. Any of these guys find find the video and in overnight start earning crypto, and that is just liberating for people. So this is part of the core piece of proof of work. Let's see here. Just broke 300 mega hash. Bro, it starts somewhere. You gotta start somewhere. All right, my dudes. Well, you guys want to check the whiteboard out? Let's just do that, and we'll wrap this one up. So if I turn it on, it's up right to the whiteboard. Let's see if you guys can hear me too. This is actually a good test for you guys. Smartboard. So you guys can see this. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. Actually, I can make that bigger. Let's do that. Oh, we can. Last time I didn't. This is main net. merge. Just what's the consensus? But ETH1 continues to move on after the merge. So all the blocks will be here. Are getting the consensus from. So that's the merge. The merge still has this moving. And this, why it's now only earning the ETH, you still can't withdraw it on this side. That's sometime in the future, 6 months plus. So part of the sell part of all that, I don't know if I like the bigger pen. I might have to keep it on the small pen. We can move this. Um, oh, we can do all kinds of stuff. Contractor, storming, put all kinds of fun stuff here. Like I could do an entire brainstorming of why ETH 2.0 won't merge anytime soon. We should do that someday. I think that would be kind of cool. Let me go back here. So, anyways, hopefully you guys like that. You guys say you can't hear me. No sound, audio, no sounds. All right. So you guys, it drops. The mic drops whenever I talk. Got it. So we'll have to fix that. This is a good test. It's a good test, my dudes. No audio issues. So it drops this you have to, the SMB7s you have to talk right into. This looks like, makes my head look like Medusa or something. It's kind of cool. You can tell you're turning away as you speak. Yeah, so we'll get that fixed. I have lavender mics that are sure coming in, which we'll probably switch to that if I'm going to be using this. So you guys will be able to see it. Awesome. So we're going to wrap this one up, my dudes. Wanted to give you kind of a setup here to show you kind of the setup. And then you guys will be looking for the new video. We got a new video coming out with Coinly. It's a crypto tax video with related on how to capture some of your transaction stuff. So you guys will see that coming up. We also have one with crypto.com. We have another video also on a couple on the actual A2000 and 3090 Ti or 3090 Ti's that I want to finish up for the full testing that we've done with it. We did a live stream with it, but we have a recap video on that. And then a ton of builds, man. We got a ton of stuff coming here. We've had a lot of people send us stuff. We got the service center under full tilt now, replacing GPU pads, thermals, fixing GPUs. We had a person send us some GPUs to do a full servicing on. We're going through that. So, you know, you guys will see that from a services standpoint on our website. Right now, people are just reaching out to BitsBeTrippin@gmail. Samantha checks that and kind of works with you guys on service agreement stuff to get things serviced for you and then returned. So we got that for anybody who's looking to like get a refresh of their GPUs or fix kind of minor things. We do some solder work on that, some cap replacement, that kind of stuff on GPUs and ASICs. So you'll see a more of a service side of that come out on the website. And we'll work with you guys here soon. We have another event out at our headquarters in downtown St. Louis coming up too. So you guys are going to see that coming up. That's probably going to be early May. We were trying for April, but it's kind of balled up. And then, of course, probably the most important thing in our world right now is our large Bitcoin mine conversion. So we're having we have containers on the way. We have one you guys saw on a thread on Twitter. So if you're following me on Twitter, you'll see that we're doing a pretty good sized container build out. And I can't wait to show you guys that. That's insane.